Have you ever put your life on hold to help your family, only to realize you weren't really wanted, just used? I used to think that sacrificing for family was simply what you did, until I realized they only needed me as long as I stayed out of the spotlight. When my mom called, I was in the middle of a board meeting in Manhattan. They were about to name me vice president of hotel operations, an achievement I'd spent nearly 20 years building toward. But with just one phone call, I pushed it all aside. Just a few months, Natalie. Come home for a bit. Things are falling apart at the family inn. Then you can go right back to your life. I didn't hesitate. Golden Pines Inn was where I grew up, running through the lobby in my tiny uniform, helping Grandma fold towels the right way. It had once been the pride of our little town in Vermont. How could I say no? I submitted a 3-month leave of absence, sold my Lexus, closed up my Soho apartment, put everything into storage. The only thing on my mind was my family needs me. But when I got home, nothing was how I remembered it. Golden Pines Inn looked like it had been forgotten by time. The curtains were worn thin. The carpet smelled damp and stale. The reservation system? A thick old ledger scribbled in blue ink. The staff looked tired, undertrained. Some had worked there for 15 years and had never once received proper hospitality training. I remember staying up until 2 a.m. my first night there, helping the front desk clerk print out a guest room chart from an email chain. When we finally got it done, she looked at me with watery eyes and said, "You being here feels like a miracle. But you're not staying long, are you?" I smiled, but something in me started to shift. Did anyone actually want me to stay? Jason, my younger brother, was nowhere to be found. He claimed he was researching millennial hotel trends in Denver. Meanwhile, Mom kept reminding me how Jason had natural creativity and innate leadership skills. And I should just help out with the behind-the-scenes stuff. But nothing stung more than hearing my own mother say, "You're smart, Natalie, but the kind of smart that's mechanical, not inspiring like your brother." I had trained hundreds of employees, turned around 4 underperforming hotels on the East Coast. But to my mother, I was just the one who's good with paperwork. Sure, I knew how to manage cash flow, analyze staff performance, optimize occupancy rates. But apparently, none of that sparkled quite like Jason's big idea to livestream guest check-ins. So I dove into the work like a machine. I taught myself their clunky old accounting software, and then replaced it with something modern. Rewrote every single front desk protocol and housekeeping manual. Used my own savings to replace the warped, rotting floorboards with moisture-resistant hardwood from Maine. I wasn't thinking about getting credit. I just thought, if I can fix it, then I should. One lesson I learned early on: when a middle-aged woman does everything right for long enough, people stop thinking it deserves acknowledgement. And I had stopped asking the one question that mattered. When this place finally turns around, will anyone even remember I was the one who saved it? 3 months passed. Then 6. Then a year. No one mentioned my return to New York. No one offered me a formal leadership role. Just comments like, "You're great with the back-end stuff, Natalie, but Jason's really the face of things. Don't take it personally, honey. Men just tend to inspire people more." That's when I finally saw the truth. That promise to help for a little while was never meant to be temporary. It was just a softer way of saying, "Stay, but stay in your place." And then, in the first staff meeting of the new year, it became painfully clear. I hadn't just been left behind. I'd been erased from the very work I had poured myself into. The broken bed frames, the Yelp reviews, and the brother who never showed up. I still remember that winter night. The wind howling through the cracks in the old windows, keeping the guest in room 203 wide awake. When I got there, he was curled under the covers, both cold and frustrated. The bed leaned to one side, and the bedside lamp flickered like something out of a haunted movie. "Are you the manager here?" he asked, voice a mix of confusion and pity. I nodded, clutching my notepad and apologizing profusely. I personally tidied the room while we moved him to another. It wasn't the first time I had to handle a mess like that, and it definitely wouldn't be the last. Golden Pines, in a name once associated with cozy, classic, reliable, was now buried in 1-star Yelp reviews. The bed creaked like it was about to collapse. I couldn't sleep all night. No heat. Front desk staff had no clue what to do. Booking site glitched. showed up and my name wasn't even on the list. I spent a month reading through every comment. Each one felt like a paper cut. Not because I was defensive, but because I knew every single one was true. And if I didn't fix it, there wouldn't be anything left to save. Meanwhile, Jason, our newly minted creative director, was still in Denver, constantly posting Instagram stories about his exhausting yet chill networking events. Every time I called home, Mom sounded giddy. Jason's swamped. He's mapping out a full rebrand for the hotel's image. And me? I was busy counting pillows, retraining housekeeping, and learning how to apologize in a way that actually met industry standards. One day, I opened the old hotel safe, where Grandma used to keep her VIP guest book, and found a thick stack of unpaid invoices from 2017. No one had bothered to follow up. Little things like that quietly eat away at a business's reputation, and it only takes one picky guest to turn a memorable stay into a nightmare. But I didn't quit. Instead, I rebuilt the system step by step. I had all the wobbly bed frames repaired by local carpenters. Some worked until midnight. I redesigned the entire booking website, hiring a design student to build something simple and user-friendly. I rewrote the confirmation email copy, just a small detail, but one that made guests feel secure and respected. No one knew I was doing these things. No one snapped photos of me mopping floors when staff called out. Jason. He'd show up every so often, do a loop around the lobby, make vague suggestions like, "This place needs a different vibe." Maybe throw in some pastel canvas art in the entrance. Then he'd disappear again like a well-dressed ghost. I used to think if I do a good enough job, people will notice. But what I learned during that stretch was this. In families and in business, effort and recognition don't always go hand in hand. And what hurt the most wasn't Jason doing nothing. It was my mother telling me, "Maybe you should tone it down a bit, so Jason has room to be creative." There were nights I cried into a pillow in the laundry room, the only place no one went after hours. I wasn't crying because I was tired. I cried because I couldn't figure out what more I had to do to finally be seen as enough. If you've ever felt like you were carrying the weight of the world, while someone else just posed for pictures with it, you're not alone. Speech balloon. Have you ever had someone else take credit for your work? And how did that make you feel? Share it in the comments. Your story might help someone else feel a little less invisible. I didn't know what I was hoping for at that point. Maybe a simple thank you, or even just a look that said, "I see you." But the only thing I got was an invitation. An all-staff meeting, where Mom proudly announced that Jason would officially be taking over operations. And me? I'd continue handling logistics, training, and back-end operations. All the things Jason referred to as minor stuff. And that's when it hit me. Maybe it was time to stop trying to hold on to a place that no longer had room for me. They gave him the title, but I carried the weight. I wish I could say I wasn't surprised that day. That I'd seen it coming. That I'd already stopped hoping. But when my mother stood in front of the staff and proudly introduced Jason as the new general manager of Golden Pines Inn, while I was only mentioned as the one behind the operations, my heart still sank. "You're great with details, sweetheart. But Jason, he's the visionary." It sounded less like a compliment, and more like a final ruling. I was being asked to stay, but to stay in the background. To step aside so my younger brother could lead the future. Jason's speech at the meeting was short, barely a few lines about bringing the brand closer to younger guests and injecting fresh energy into a tired space. He smiled, waved like a social media celebrity, then turned to me and said, "Can you send me the latest financial reports? But keep it short, please. Your stuff is always super detailed, it wears me out." I swallowed my pride, nodded, and went back to my little corner office, tucked behind the laundry room, where I'd wedged in a DIY desk and an armless chair. From that day on, I worked harder than ever. Even though manager had quietly disappeared from my title. When the industrial washing machine sprung a leak, I was the one crawling underneath to fix it. When a tour group arrived late and the reservation system crashed, I called every guest and rearranged rooms manually. When a new kitchen hire mixed up ingredients and triggered a guest's allergy, I was the one issuing apologies, handling medical protocol, and filing the report with our insurance provider. Jason. He suggested eliminating complimentary breakfast to cut costs and align with modern wellness trends. I tried to counter with data, Showed him a chart that said 82% of guests mentioned the breakfast in glowing reviews. Some even said it was the reason they chose our hotel. Jason just laughed and shrugged. These charts you make are cute, but sometimes you just gotta go with your gut, sis. Numbers aren't always right. I didn't know what was worse, his irresponsibility, or the fact that my parents seemed to agree with him. A week later, Jason fired Doris, the laundry lead who'd been with us for 15 years, because she refused a sudden schedule change he made on a whim. I called her back, apologized, rearranged everything so she could stay. She cried, then said something I'll never forget. "I'm not leaving because I'm tired. I'm leaving because no one sees me as a person anymore." That's when I understood, deeper than ever before. Titles don't earn respect. The way you treat people when no one's watching does. One night, I stayed late doing books when an email from Jason popped up. "You should work on being softer with the team. You don't always need to be so serious. We're trying to create a friendly vibe, remember?" I almost laughed. So now the one who picked up every mess. The one who took the blame when systems broke. The one who stayed late, gave up weekends, was being called too serious. Have you ever been in a relationship, family or work where you did everything but someone else got the spotlight? Speech balloon. Have you ever carried the weight while someone else got the applause? If you have, share your story in the comments. I'm listening, and I know I'm not the only one who needs to hear it. I started waking up each morning with a quiet ache I couldn't name. I looked around the place that once held my childhood memories, and now felt like a battlefield of emotional unfairness. And then, one evening driving home, I passed by the old abandoned Birchwood Manor, once Golden Pine's biggest competitor, now left to rot after the pandemic. The for sale sign leaned sideways in the late afternoon sun. I stopped the car, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel sadness. I felt an idea. If they won't give me a place, I'll build one they can't ignore. I sat in my car, staring at the crooked for sale sign outside Birchwood Manor, feeling something stir deep in my chest. This place was once the pride of the Vermont hillside, a historic and nestled in pine trees, right by the winter ski trails. But since the pandemic, it had been shuttered, silent, forgotten. The wood was peeling, the windows fogged with dust. But I didn't see decay. I saw opportunity, not for revenge, but for something much simpler. To breathe in a rhythm that finally felt like my own. That night I couldn't sleep. I made tea, opened my laptop and did what I always do best, research. I pulled comps from the local market, dug up ownership records, calculated renovation costs, from electrical rewiring to steam room upgrades. Called an old colleague, now a hotel construction supervisor in Boston, for advice. The next morning, I scheduled a walkthrough with the realtor. Even in the dim light, even with the stained carpets, I could still see it. The original arch ceilings, the marble fireplace in the lobby, and a spa space nearly twice the size of my family's inn. In my mind, I could already see guests walking in, smiling as they greeted the front desk. I saw a place where I belonged. Of course, my parents didn't see it that way. At dinner, when I told them I'd bought Birchwood, my mom asked, "Are you trying to compete with us?" Jason snorted. "Wow, is this about competition? Or running away?" I didn't answer, because I knew no explanation would be understood. So instead I took action. I named the place the Haven Stone. Haven for the safe space I needed, and stone for the strength I'd found in starting again. No flashy ads. Just quiet calls to the people who'd believed in me before. Doris from laundry. Elliot from the bar. Carmen, the housekeeper Jason once wrongly blamed. We started from scratch. Painted every wall by hand. Designed rooms with a theme of calm maturity. Built the menu using ingredients from nearby farms. And instead of installing cameras to track staff productivity, I built a break room where the team could eat a real breakfast, not just wolf down a cold sandwich mid-shift. We didn't make a profit that first month. But then guests started finding us. They came not for Instagram-worthy luxury, but for peace. For a place where you could sleep well, eat fully, and be called by your name. One woman, maybe in her 60s, took my hand at checkout and said, "For the first time in years, I feel like I've been cared for. There's something real here." I used to think I was only good at fixing problems. But it turns out, when given the chance to lead, I could build a space that healed. Not just for the guests, but for me too. The lesson I learned? When others won't give you a seat at the table, don't fight to squeeze in. Step back and build your own door. And wouldn't you know it? Just as the Havenstone started popping up on travel blogs and earning 5-star reviews, I got a call from my mom. But this time, not to ask for help, to ask for rescue. Golden Pines was slipping. Staff were leaving. Guests weren't coming back. Jason was lost. "We need you to come back," my mother said, her voice trembling. "Have you ever created something beautiful only after someone pushed you out?" Speech balloon. If you've ever rebuilt your life from a place of pain, share your story in the comments. You never know, your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. I invited my mother to the Havenstone for a conversation. I don't know what went through her mind when she stepped into the main lobby, where the light poured across the stone floor I had picked, piece by piece. But when she stood silently for a long time, I knew, for the first time, she finally saw me. When they asked me to come back, I finally said no without explaining. My parents came on a Monday morning. No call, no warning. They simply walked into the Havenstone's main lobby, where soft morning light streamed through the linen curtains I had picked myself. My mother wore an old sweater, no makeup, looking far more tired than I remembered. My father stood quietly beside her, dark circles under his eyes, gently clutching his worn felt hat. "Can you spare us 10 minutes? She asked, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. I led them into my office, a small warm space with chamomile tea already steeped in the pot, and a second-hand leather chair I had polished myself. They told me everything. Jason had lost control. Golden Pines couldn't retain staff. Customer complaints were piling up. Online reviews were tanking. The bank was calling frequently. "We don't know what to do anymore," my dad said, eyes averted. Then came the words I once ached to hear. "We were wrong not to see you clearly," my mom said. But strangely, I didn't feel vindicated. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list everything I'd done. I didn't ask why now. Instead, I told the truth. "A year ago I reached out. And you looked away. I'm not coming back to patch what I already warned would fall apart. That's no longer my burden to carry." My mom opened her mouth to say something more, but I gently added, "I'm happy to recommend a consultant, share documents, or even send over Havenstone's operating systems. But I'm not coming back to fix what someone else broke. Not this time." They left in silence. I watched them from behind the window pane. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. My father walked slower than before. And though my heart, trained now to be steady, dipped for a moment, I didn't chase after them. I let that sorrow stay behind the door. A week later, the Havenstone was nominated for Boutique Retreat of the Year. And when I walked on stage beside my team to accept the award, I knew I had made it. From someone who was once pushed aside, to someone who built something no one could ignore. The biggest lesson I learned? Forgiveness doesn't mean returning. And sometimes the deepest form of self-love is saying no. Without offering an explanation, I no longer needed validation, no longer needed someone to give me a place. Because I had chosen one for myself, a space that was peaceful, solid, and entirely mine. And if you're holding yourself together quietly, in your family, your workplace, or a relationship where you always have to prove your worth, speech balloon, have you ever had to stand up? Not to fight someone, but to protect your own heart? Share your story below. Someone out there might be standing where you once stood. If stories like this speak to you, where grown women rise from the shadows of others and finally reclaim their light, sparkles, hit subscribe to this channel, as I believe every quiet breakthrough deserves to be heard. Thank you for listening. I'm Natalie, and this isn't just the story of a hotel. It's the story of reclaiming myself.